Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I will help you make a decision on whether you should buy a Switch Lite or a Switch OLED in 2021. Now, this video will generally be for people who are new to the Switch community and have not gotten a Switch yet and are looking to buy their first Switch. So, you might be wondering, why am I not comparing the regular Switch with the Switch OLED? Well, to start with, the Switch Lite and the Switch OLED probably have the most polar differences among the Switch market, as this is a complete handheld and the Switch OLED is the newest docking Switch. So there will be a lot of differences to compare and a lot of specs to compare. And then second off, I've had this Switch Lite for around 2 years, so I've had some time to play around with it and I've had time to accumulate my own opinion about whether this should be a viable option in 2021 compared to the Switch OLED. So now with that out of the way, let's go straight to the spec sheet. So everyone, now we're on the specification site where it'll list the hardware differences and specs of each Switch. Now, as you can see, it is listing specifications for Nintendo Switch, the Switch Lite, and the Switch OLED. But for the purposes of this video, we will just blank out the Switch, the normal Switch, as we are purely focusing on the Switch Lite and the Switch OLED specifications. Also, I will list all the sources I used down in the description, so if you want to check those out, you can. So to start with size, the Switch Lite will be quite smaller than the Switch OLED, as it's coming to around 3.6 inches high and 8.2 inches long. The Switch OLED coming around 4 inches high and 9.5 inches long. And it's just because the Switch OLED is, has detachable Joy-Cons and it is a docking Switch compared to the Switch Lite, which is not a dockable Switch and it does not have detachable Joy-Cons, so it just makes sense for it to be quite smaller compared to the Switch OLED, which it can be a con for some people, but you do have to include in the factor the price of the Switch Lite compared to the Switch OLED, which we will go in details later. So now to move on with weight. The Switch Lite will approximately come around 0.61 pounds, which is quite light, and the OLED Switch will come around 0.93. Now ignore 7.1, as that is the Switch without the Joy-Cons. That is just the Switch hardware alone, the screen, and nothing else. And trust me, you're not going to be carrying around the Switch that often without the Joy-Cons. So you want to be just comparing this number and this number, as this is basically the entire Switch and this is the OLED Switch with the Joy-Cons attached, right? So it's a bit heavier. I mean, it's just because you're paying for a little bit more compared to the Switch Lite, which is reasonable. So I mean, the Switch Lite can become a pro if you like having a very light portable device to carry around. If you're going on trips, it can become very convenient compared to the Switch OLED. But with the extra weight, the Switch OLED can offer some other bonuses, as we'll see as we continue. So, move on with the screen. This is a very, very big factor, as this should be why you would want to buy the Switch OLED. As the name suggests, it has a OLED screen compared to the Switch Lite, which has a LCD screen. So, to start with, what does LCD stand for? So LCD is a liquid crystal display, and basically what that is, it's a external white light shines through a color filter, which are called liquid crystals, and this color filter will create different colors, right? So it's just an average white light, it shines through a filter, and that filter will create colors. That's the best way I can put it. So it is a pretty old design. It's been a while, like here for probably around 30 years, and it has been used largely for computer monitor screens, some cell phones, and it does its justice. It is not a bad screen at all. It is just a little lower budget than the OLED, but it still does the job. Now, compared to the OLED screen, OLED stands for a organic light imitating diodes, which basically means each pixel is not a filter. Each pixel creates its own light. And because of this, it can create a way sharper picture with better contrast. Because when compared to the LCD, you're having an external light shine through pixels that filter out and create colors, right? But the OLED, the pixels themselves create the colors. So when you're on a black screen, it creates a way better contrast because those pixels can just shut off and create a perfect black picture, while some other pixels on the screen still stay on. So that's why the OLED screen comes out to be a lot more sharper in color. So that is a lot more revolutionary design compared to the LCD, and you will see OLED screens in smartphones today, a lot of smartphones compared to LCD. So let's now move down to resolution. Both switches will both come at 720p. Now, this is a very big deal because look at the size of the screen. The Switch Lite is a 5.5 inch display, while the Switch OLED is a 7.1 inch display. Now, why this is such a big deal is because this actually, surprisingly, the Switch Lite will have a more suppressed image compared to the Switch OLED, as these pixels, that's the 720p pixels, will have to be spread out among a 7-inch display compared to a 5-inch display where 720p can actually be quite sharper. I mean, you could think of it as a smartphone. Smartphones may look extremely sharp, but they actually do not have that high resolution displays because the pixels are so small. So the same goes with the Switch Lite, because the screen is so small, even though it's 720p, it will still look sharp. So, I mean, if you put 720p on a TV, on the other hand, where it's, it's being counted by feet, it will not look sharp because it is a large display. So, when you have a 7-inch display for a Switch OLED, that will come out to be a little more pixely, hypothetically, compared to the Switch Lite, since you do have a larger screen compared to the 5.5. So this CPU and GPU will probably be the biggest selling point for the Switch Lite. As you see, both Switch models, actually all Switch models, come with the same CPU, GPU hardware, the NVIDIA custom Tegra processor for each. Now, why this is such a big selling point is because the Switch Lite, even though the Switch Lite comes at a cheaper price, it does not cut down at performance. Now, it may cut down at other things like battery life, as we'll see later on, and some other factors. It will not cut down performance. So this is a huge bonus for people like me that want performance. And it is not so good for the Switch OLED as you would think if you think you're upgrading in performance when you're actually not, because you're getting the exact same CPU, GPU processor. So you will relatively be getting the same performance as a Switch Lite. If you're playing on a Switch OLED, you'll be getting around the same performance. So that is a huge plus for the Switch Lite, and that should be a big factor in determining which Switch you should buy. So let's move down to the next column, storage. And it's not that big of a deal when it comes to storage, just because if you buy a Switch Lite off the shelves, it will usually come with 32 gigabytes. But it's easily changeable, since you can always put a micro SD. Here are the different types of SDs you can put in it. Same goes with the OLED. You may get a little bit more memory off the shelves with the OLED, but you can always just expand that memory with a micro SD, and again, you can expand that memory up to 2 gigabytes, which is a big bonus for each Switch. So memory is really not that big of an issue as long as you have the bit extra cash to buy a micro SD chip for each. So not a big factor at all. And then wireless, each Switch has Bluetooth 4.1, and they should relatively be around the same Bluetooth, so we'll just pass that one. So now let's go to video output. As you can see, the Switch Lite is NA. it does not have a video output because it is not a docking switch. The OLED, on the other hand, is a docking switch and can play up to 180p via HDMI and TV mode. So this is a huge plus for the Switch OLED, as you cannot dock a Switch Lite. And the thing is, I give credit to Switch Lite, as it is cheaper. They are gonna have to cut out some things. I mean, as we just shown up above, you're getting the same performance, right? So if you are someone who just likes to play portable and you really do not care about docking, then just go with the Switch Lite. But if you do care about docking, you want that TV mode, and if you're not sure if you want to play portable, if you don't, then the Switch OLED could be a very convenient option. As you can see, you can just dock it to a TV, and then when you don't want to play TV anymore, you can just undock it and play in handheld mode at 720p, same as Switch Lite. So very big bonus for the Switch OLED. So now when it comes to video output, audio output, the Switch Lite again is NA because it does not have audio output, since it's not connecting to any external screen, right? It is just handheld mode and alone. And then for the headphone and mic jack, you have the average 3.5 millimeter port, which, you know, it's like a typical audio port you used to see a lot on like the old iPhones, like the iPhone 5, iPhone 4 used to have the 3.5 millimeter, and actually you still have those ports today on Androids. You can find them on Androids. So, you know, you could just buy any regular cheap $5 headphones and they should work perfectly fine on either Switch. If you have a Switch already and you have Switch games, you can use those same games on a Switch Lite or a Switch OLED. They both use the same card slots. Nothing has changed in the game compatibility. So micro SD, this is kind of what I explained up above. You can transfer a micro SD for extra storage, and this column just explains what formats of micro SD you can get. Operating temperature is just showing, you know, when you should be using the Switch and what are the minimums and maximum degrees. And as you know, because the Switch is cheaper, it's going to have to cut out some factors, right? So obviously we do have a smaller battery for the Switch Lite compared to the Switch OLED, which it's expected, because you cannot have, you know, everything can't be the same. If you are paying more, you are going to be gaining a little more, right? Like, you get what you pay for. So you will be getting a little bit more battery life with the Switch OLED, right? And it's down here, it says approximately 3 hours to 7 hours of battery life with Switch Lite, compared to the 4.5 to 9 hours for the Switch OLED. So this is kind of subjective, since depending on the game, the battery can last a lot longer for each Switch, and sometimes it'll go a lot faster. For instance, I played, you know, heavy games like Fortnite. It drains the battery life in 2 hours, and certain games like that will just extremely drain the battery out. And some games will actually carry on the battery a little past 9 hours. So it really depends on which game you're playing. To wrap up this conclusion, I would recommend the Switch Lite for just people who want to enter the Nintendo community. They want to play these games, these exclusive Nintendo games, but they do not want to spend a fortune, right? I would totally recommend Switch Lite. I have not had any problems with it. It plays games perfectly fine. It'll play games at equal performance compared to any Switch, right? Has the same CPU, GPU hardware. You will not be seeing any difference in performance. Now, you will be seeing a difference in is the screen, as the Switch OLED will be carrying a newer screen with the OLED screens. You will be getting a sharper, better contrast picture, which is a huge bonus for people who want that high screen quality. They want to have that immersive experience, right? So if you are a Nintendo gamer that has played Nintendo games and you want to have that immersive extra, you know, the extra details, the extra quality, then I would say spend the extra money and go with the Switch OLED, as you will be getting a far better gameplay experience, I would say, just with the screen quality, concerning just the screen quality, as you are getting a bit larger display, and you will be able to dock the Switch on a TV, so that's an extra bonus, right? With the Switch Lite, you will not be able to dock it. So I think that wraps up this video. I hope I helped you accumulate your own decisions concerning which Switch to buy, and I think that will be all. And please like this video if you want more videos like this, and please comment down below if you'd like to see different types of videos.